Com.
Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Life is a journey, and the Doherty Family College will help you get where you want to go. Located downtown Minneapolis, this affordable 2-year college provides free textbooks, a laptop, meals, career coaches, one-on-one mentorship, and a Metro Transit pass, making DFC the perfect pathway to a bachelor's degree. Turn your dreams into reality. Connect with a counselor today at dfc.stthomas.edu.
J&S Bean Factory is a native-owned, community-supported, cozy, artsy coffee shop which offers roasted on-site beans, live music, and baked goods. Relax in the beautiful outside patio. City Pages writes, voted top 10 coffee shops. Tucked into a quiet corner of St. Paul's Highland Park neighborhood, this coffee shop roasts beans on-site from the best coffee-growing countries in the world. Located at 1518 Randolph Avenue, St. Paul. The good stuff.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in 4 directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for cloudy skies overnight with a low around 60, Thursday partly cloudy with a high near 73, and Friday partly cloudy with a high near 76. Check out the award-winning Hazel's Northeast for a delicious meal any time of the day. They have some of the most creatively prepared comfort food you'll find. And Hazel's is now open Tuesdays through Saturdays from 8 to 8 with a Sunday brunch from 8 until 2. Located off 29th and Johnson in Minneapolis and at hazelsnetogo.com.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
It's a good day to be indigenous. Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake. Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in 4 directions. You're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade, and that's our cat, Kitty. And we discuss Native news and events all over Turtle Island. And as you know, Wendy, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline. Call them at 651-304-9986. They're open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I'll be really happy when the day comes when we don't have to call the COVID-19 hotline.
Yes. I just got to say, my name's Wakanja Hade, which means distant thunder in the Ho-Chunk language, and my taxpayer name is Robert Pilot. And again, we discuss local and national Twin City news and events, and national too. Mm-hmm. And with that, why don't we, let's talk about the show for just a second. Mm-hmm. We're going to have House Representative of Minnesota, Heather Keeler, and she's going to have a guest. So she's going to take over our show.
That's great.
I'm going to kick back. And then, of course, Wednesday is Bob Blake with Solar Bear with the Solar News. And Lewis and Bob Blake will have a discussion. And then we'll call it a night. But let's get to Ogimaa with the news, because you don't hear any Native news in this way ever around the whole Turtle Island. So
Mhm.
it's a big deal. Welcome, Ogimaa.
Hi, Anim Buju, everybody. I'm Ogimaa Giniw Ikwe. I am here for you for the middle of the week. And I just want to start out by saying big news in Indian country was that Bob Blake, who'll be on the show later today, was actually on Good Morning America this week. I haven't gotten to see too many clips of it yet, but it's a pretty big deal when our Native relatives get national news coverage. Bob was on talking about solar. He mentioned MMIW. He did what he could with the time he had to mention so many of the issues that are plaguing us here in Indian country. So
I believe
just
that'll
wanna-
be on the 11th or 12th, and they taped it just recently. So yeah, it's not going to be, because I asked him if he was going to be in DC, and he said it's going to be recorded on, or played on that date.
Right, exactly. Sorry, I should have said he was interviewed by Good Morning America this week. So that was really exciting. And we're excited to see that air next week. So thank you for that clarification, Robert. And I just want to let him know how proud we are of him for getting that national coverage and doing what he can with it. Speaking of national news for Indigenous people, this coming Monday is Indigenous Peoples Day. However, I don't know how many people know this, and I guess I'm kind of recently really putting the pieces together about this, but Indigenous Peoples Day is actually not a federal holiday. It is only a holiday in Maine, New Mexico, and South Dakota. Other states like Minnesota or Alaska, Iowa, Louisiana, some other ones have observed this day through like executive orders with the government, but they actually have not declared it a holiday. So only Columbus Day is considered a federal holiday, and they halt the post and the National Bank and everything for that, but it's still not a national holiday. And, it kind of stresses me out a little bit, Robert. How do you feel about that one?
Well, I don't have to give you a day off with the pay, so I feel pretty good about that. But other than that, every day is Indigenous Day for us, so they can do what they want. They just can't take our dignity away, right?
I suppose that's the truth. It'd just be nice to be recognized at a national level on one day of the year. That would be something that would make me happy. And I just wanted to make sure if you are still not aware of that, or if you're an ally that's tuning into our show, there's a lot of talk about Columbus Day turning into Indigenous Peoples Day, but that has not been federally declared as a holiday. So definitely just keep that in mind when you're talking to your elected officials. If that's something that's important to you, that we could, get rid of Columbus Day, that would be great. So the reason I bring up Indigenous Peoples Day is because on Monday is the beginning of the People versus Fossil Fuels rally, which is going to take place in Washington, D.C. It's going to run October 11th through 15th, and that is going to be a week-long action at the White House where people will participate in civil disobedience and demand that President Biden choose a side, people versus fossil fuels. What they're really asking him for is two things. One is to make good on his promises that he did when he was elected into office, and to stop approving fossil fuel projects like Line 3 to end the fossil fuel era. And the big one is to declare a national climate emergency to be able to launch a renewable energy revolution, which is really something that the country needs right now. I don't know if you are aware of this, but there's an oil spill that happened off the coast of California. There's over the weekend off of Huntington Beach, and now there's oil slicks that are forming in off the coast of Louisiana after Hurricane Ida.
Yep.
And one of those was pipelines. One of those was rigs. Off the coast of California, it was a pipeline. Off the coast of Louisiana, it was oil rigs. So we know that these things are terrible for the environment, and we know that the companies that run these things do not take care of the environment after they've ruined it. And here we are again and again, and we're going to be seeing more and more extreme weather due to climate change, which is exacerbated by fossil fuels. And these companies are just not being held accountable, which is causing a lot of kind of distrust with the Biden administration and people of color and environmental activists, because the Biden administration, while they have done some pretty fantastic things, has also kind of gone against their word. And there is a lot of policies that they have talked about and enacted, or at least got started enacting in the Biden administration, and yet have not taken any sort of backing, such as the Line 3 pipeline here in Minnesota. So Native Roots Radio plans to be in DC on Monday for Indigenous Peoples Day, and we're pretty excited about that. However, if you cannot be in Washington, D.C. on Indigenous Peoples Day, they do hold an event at the Minnesota Governor's Mansion, and it's brought to you by Women Against Military Madness, also known as WHAM, with 2 M's. And what WHAM does is they host this event they host it together. I'm sorry, I've lost my place here. They host this joint vigil in front of the Governor's Mansion in Minnesota, and I believe it runs from 4 to 6 p.m. every Monday. And they plan to, I think it's Veterans for Peace, actually. I think that might be what it is. But they plan to carry that on through the end of December. So if you're in Minnesota and you're looking for something to do on Indigenous Peoples Day to help honor Indigenous people, that is one way that you can do it, is to help us get the Line 3 pipeline shut down by holding space in front of the Governor's Mansion. An interesting thing that came through today that I wanted to give everybody an update about is the Line 5 pipeline over in Michigan. The Canadian government has asked the United States to suspend litigation over the efforts of Michigan to shut down the Great Lakes oil pipeline, saying that the United States made a treaty with Canada, and basically saying that the Canadian foreign minister basically made it clear that the government is backing Enbridge. So it requested negotiations. Canada said it requested negotiation with the U.S. about the pipeline, and cited a provision in a 1977 treaty that says no public authority in either country can take steps to interfere with the flow of hydrocarbons. But yet they continue to ignore the treaties of the Native people here inside the U.S. and in Canada. So I just thought that was an interesting factoid you should all be aware of.
Hey, and I also want to give a quick shout out to Emmett Eastman Sr., who passed away, a great warrior. He was very old, and every time we went to Standing Rock, I'd see him by the Sacred Fire, and he was a big time marathon runner, well known all across Turtle Island. I just want to give a shout out to in memory of Emmett Eastman. Up next, we're going to have State Representative Heather Keeler take over our show and have a guest. We'll be right back. This is Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake.
Stay with us. Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
If the statistics say that 1 in 3 Native women and 1 in 6 Native men have experienced sexual assault in their lifetime, it means our whole community is affected by sexual violence. 1 is too many. Don't stand by, stand up. Don't engage in acts of sexual violence, and shut down the dirty jokes, the gossip, the victim blaming and shaming. As a community, we can change the way we respond. Contact the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition to attend a workshop to learn more.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
If you're hurting in your relationship or have been affected by sexual violence, you're not alone. Strong Hearts Native Helpline can help you through these difficult and uncertain times. Strong Hearts Helpline is a free 24/7 confidential domestic dating and sexual violence helpline for Native Americans. Help is available by calling 1-844-762-8483 or by clicking on the Chat Now icon on strongheartshelpline.org. This message is sponsored by the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
Hey, welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Within Jahade.
This portion of the show is brought to you by MN350, a grassroots organization fighting for climate justice.
Hey, right on. Hey, we have State Representative Heather Keeler on today, and she's brought a guest with us. And what I want to do is just hand over the show to State Representative and welcome you. Welcome, Heather.
Hi, Robert. Hi, Wendy. Thanks for having me. It's always so good to be here. And although I've been a guest a lot of times here, I talk a lot about collaboration and the work that we're doing. And I definitely don't do this work alone. And so I thought I would bring some people along with me as we get closer to session to talk about some of the things we worked on, some of the things we plan to work on, and why that's important and how that impacts our sovereign nations and tribal communities, not only in our state, but hopefully we create some change that impacts our region. So today I brought Deputy Commissioner Curtis Shanklin with me. He is the Deputy Commissioner for Department of Corrections. This is an area that I've worked in a lot, kind of behind the scenes with my work in Indian education. We see this intertwined a lot with some of our kids, some of our communities. And so I just want to welcome Deputy Commissioner to the show.
Well, thank you. First and foremost, sincerely appreciate the opportunity to be amongst you all. Thank you for inviting me into your space. I'll just kind of echo what Representative Keeler mentioned. Anytime we have an opportunity to collaborate, particularly around this work, what I call in this criminal justice arena, I think is vitally important, specifically to all Minnesotans, but more importantly, just as important, maybe more importantly to our communities who are most impacted at times by the criminal justice system. So an absolute pleasure to be here. Sincerely, thank you all for your time and for having me. And looking forward to the conversation.
Fun. So Robert, are you just going to let me take over the show right now? Is that what?
Absolutely.
That's what he said, Heather. It's your show.
I don't lie. It's your show.
We're just relaxing. We're sitting back here.
Well, see, I didn't know that was the case, so if that was, I might have to now rethink my agreement to come. No, we're all good. It's always a pleasure.
So, so it's kind of funny because we can kind of joke around because it's interesting to me when I talk about representation in these spaces and that people have to be at the tables who understand the lens of life that we've been in to make decisions that are really equitable. And actually, the Deputy Commissioner and I went to college together 20 years ago down at Southwest State. So it's really interesting that we've come full circle back into this position. 20 years ago, just as kids, we were talking about we got to impact something. We got to change this system somehow. We had no clue what that meant. And now we're here in this space and able to do this work. And so I guess we'll just start off. One of the biggest things, Deputy Commissioner, if you can talk just a little bit about some of the policy things that we tried to work on this year, especially the things that were around our kids and how it would affect, all of the state, not just a certain population and not just a certain location. If you want to talk a little bit about some of those initiatives.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of like Representative Keeler mentioned, of course, we have specificity, particularly for our communities. When I talk about, our African-American Black community and our Native American Indigenous community, again, because they are most impacted and overrepresented within both our adult criminal justice system, but also within our juvenile justice system as well. So it is vitally important for us to have intentionality to really look at how do we address those inequities, but also keeping in mind that the work that we're looking to do impacts all youth and all Minnesotans across the state. But specific to our legislative platform, we had a fairly robust legislative platform during this past session, specific to the juvenile space. Some of my colleagues played a vital role in that, specifically director at the Department of Corrections, Katrina Dexter, who was kind of really the architect behind what we were able to put forth. And so some of the provisions that I'll just mention that we look to do, and some of them were successful. So I'll just kind of start with the successes out of the legislative platform, which was we were able to end indiscriminate shackling here for Minnesota youth across the state. We became now one of 30 plus states that have ended this practice for youth. As you all might know that for the adults, because of a number of things, due process, there's a federal statute that doesn't allow that, but there wasn't a state statute specific to that in Minnesota. And as you all can imagine, it's a lot different for a youth who comes in, in shackles or restraints, as opposed to coming in and say dress clothes. We also think about the fact that, a number of our young women who have introduction to the criminal justice system as a youth are sexual assault victims and survivors. So the re-traumatization of those youth being placed in restraints and shackles. So we were able to get that passed on a bipartisan basis. So really appreciate all the legislators who played a role into that. Another provision we were able to get passed was alternatives to arrest. So how can we continue to work with our law enforcement partners, particularly around finding alternatives? So what we were able to do was pass a bill that gives explicit authority to all of our law enforcement departments across the state, where they can implement their own formal diversion programs. We see that as a win-win, both from a collaboration effort, but also recognizing that many of our law enforcement partners are doing great work around the state. So how do we bolster that? Other things that we weren't able to get passed, but were still significantly supported in a bipartisan measure, was doing away with strip searches within our juvenile facilities unless they were done by a licensed medical physician. Again, as you all can imagine, the trauma that many of our youth are going through, the fact that many of our youth, particularly in our communities, are victims and survivors, making sure that we want to keep the safety and security of the facility in mind, but how do we do that in a way that's humane? And so one of the things we looked to do was how do we have someone designated who can do these strip searches for you so that there's consistency and it's done in a humane manner. Other thing that we looked to do was eliminate DRT, which is designated room time here in Minnesota, also known as solitary confinement. Again, another one of the bipartisan efforts that we will continue to stay at to look to get passed. And just to make a note, because I think sometimes when people hear us talk about getting rid of solitary confinement, the question is what are you going to replace that with? And I just want to make sure that it's clear here that there is another rule on the books that allows youth to be separated in the event that they need to. Solitary confinement is used as a punitive measure, as a punishment. And we all know the psychological issues that causes for youth, particularly when they're placed in solitary confinement. We don't even do that a lot in the adult world. So you can imagine why we shouldn't be doing that in the juvenile space. Other things that we look to do was close public records for our youth who are 16 or 17 years old, who's been charged with a felony, to try to eliminate some of those collateral consequences for youth who make poor choices at the youth, but can follow them onward if they look to, say, join the military or take another job. Just making sure that, poor decisions that they make as a youth don't hinder their ability to continue to flourish and grow as they get older. We also looked at implementing a risk assessment tool that provides uniformity and guidance for who should go into secure confinement. And then we also looked at raising the age, both for delinquency and detention. Here in Minnesota, if you're 10 years old and you commit a delinquent offense, you can be placed in a juvenile detention center. And there is no separation from a 10-year-old to an 18-year-old or a 17-year-old. They're all programmed together. And you all can imagine the challenges that presents, particularly with many of our youth are very impressionable. So we were looking to raise that age to 13, also looking to raise the age of delinquency to 13 as well. So that way youth who commit offenses at that age are handled, through the child welfare system. That way they're not just working with the youth, but they're working with the entire family. And so those are just a number of the provisions that we look to get passed during this legislative platform. And again, bipartisan in nature, and we'll look forward to going at it again. So thank you, Representative, for mentioning that.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's interesting because when Robert was like, yeah, come on for a couple minutes to talk about what we're doing. It's like, we can do it in a couple minutes, but it's so in depth. And it's really just setting like a platform for a lot of these changes that we want to make. You know, in a perfect world, our Black and brown kids wouldn't end up in a juvenile system as regularly as they do. But what we're trying right now is just to start making changes in the system so that we're keeping, you know, this space of humanity and this space of human kindness. I tell a story, and I told it when we were at White Earth, and maybe when we come back from break, we can talk about our time at White Earth. But, you know, I'm a little sister of a brother who spent a lot of time and still continues to spend a lot of time in the corrections facilities. And I remember as a little girl sitting at the table and hearing my brother say, it's the Department of Corrections, but yet there's no redirecting or like helping correct some of our actions. We just get stuck in a cycle that continues to take things away from us and make it harder and harder for us to succeed and grow in spaces. We all make mistakes. It's just, you know, we know that the systems are designed to work against us often. And so thanks, Robert. Thanks, Wendy, for allowing us to be here, you know, to talk about this, because it's really important work. And I think, you know, there's a lot of the things that Deputy Commissioner just talked about that I didn't know about before I was here. That's really, really appalling to me. You know, that a 10-year-old, I just think of when my kid was 10 and, you know, we put them in a space with 16, 17, 18-year-olds. It's just a really difficult space to be in. Shackling, you know, the imagery that comes with that, you're already viewed then as, you know, some sort of individual who's like harmful to society rather than just a kid who's made a poor decision or a poor mistake. So there's a lot of things that we did work on and some things that we'll continue to work on in the future. So I know we're going to go to break. I saw the sign and I'm getting really good at wrapping it up when I see the sign, Wendy. And so hopefully we can come back and Deputy Commissioner Shanklin and I can talk a little bit more about something we've done in White Earth that we're really excited about, and then some of the ideas that we're hoping to address in this upcoming session.
Absolutely.
Oh, perfect. Only thing you didn't say is we'll be right back after a short break. This is presents I'm Awake.
Stay with us.
Hey, Wendy, what are we doing for dinner after the show?
How about we go to J. Selby's on 169 Victoria Street in St. Paul? They have a delicious plant-based menu that's compassionate and environmentally sustainable.
I'm getting their spot-on vegan Big Mac, the dirty secret.
You can pick up and they deliver within a 5-mile radius, or you can call them at 651-222-3263 or visit jselbys.com.
Well, you sold me one. Let's go order at J. Selby's tonight.
I'm hungry.
Patrick here for my cleaning and floor replacement heroes at Zero Res. There are hundreds of reasons to call my friends at Zero Res, but did you know they specialize in flooring replacement too? It just makes total sense. As much as they want to save every carpet and floor they service, there does come a time when replacement is the best option. And lucky for you, nobody knows carpet and flooring more than the experts at Zero Res. Z Floors by Zero Res partnered with the leading carpet and flooring manufacturers to offer custom solutions for any budget and lifestyle. Choose from top-of-the-line products guaranteed to be stain and leak-proof to luxury patterns and textures that feel like silk. Whether you're considering carpet, hardwood, luxury vinyl, or tile, Z Floors by Zero Res will bring their mobile showroom to you for a free in-home consultation. So when nothing but new will do, check out the new Zero Res New Floors experience at www.z-floors.com. That's z-floors.com.
If you're hurting in your relationship or have been affected by sexual violence, you're not alone. Strong Hearts Native Helpline can help you through these difficult and uncertain times. Strong Hearts Helpline is a free 24/7 confidential domestic dating and sexual violence helpline for Native Americans. Help is available by calling 1-844-762-8483 or by clicking on the Chat Now icon on strongheartshelpline.org. This message is sponsored by the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center.
Hi, this is Ken Hagland, host of Living Healthy and Aging Well, where we talk about enjoying your highest quality of life. If you have questions about Medicare, transportation, need help with household chores, looking to move to senior housing, or overwhelmed with prescription drug plans, join me this Saturday with my guest, Mela Yang, Community Outreach Specialist with Trellis. We will be talking about the great resources available through their Senior Linkage line. That's this Saturday, October 9th, from noon to 1 on Living Healthy and Aging Well.
Hello, it's Randy Rhodes, Team Randy. Glad to be a part of the lineup of Progressive Voices on AM 950. Tune in, join us weeknights at 10.
Join Quorum as they celebrate their 28th annual National Coming Out Day Luncheon, presented by U.S. Bank. This inspirational and transformational luncheon gives voice to the power of living openly, honestly, and with authenticity at work, in our families, in our faith communities, and across our lives. The realities of living an authentic life are deeper than coming out. We all have many layers of identity, and we must work together to create a world where people can bring their whole self to everything they do. The National Coming Out Day Luncheon serves as a celebration of who we are individually and together. Reserve your tickets today for Friday, October 8th. The National Coming Out Day Luncheon will be at Target Field, 1 Twins Way in Minneapolis. The Marketplace Expo opens at 10 a.m. and the luncheon will begin at 11:45. Tickets are available to members for $50 or non-members for $60. Learn more and purchase your tickets at TwinCitiesQuorum.com. That's Twin Cities, QUORUM.com.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for cloudy skies overnight with a low around 60, Thursday partly cloudy with a high near 73, and Friday partly cloudy with a high near 76. Is estate planning still on your to-do list, or are you overdue for an update? Get started today with Schromen Law in St. Paul. Call 651-571-2515 or visit schromenlaw.com. That's SCHROMEN law.com.
This is Winona LaDuke of Honor the Earth, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio. I'm awake.
We are Elusive Nation.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, we're with State Representative Heather Keeler and Deputy Commissioner Curtis Shanklin. And up next, we're going to have Bob Blake with Solar Bear. But I want to give Heather opportunity here to put some finality in this. And Wendy and I just were like dumbfounded.
We were talking a lot during the break about all the interesting work and important work that you're doing. So we really, really appreciate it.
And I'm just, when I was 10 years old or 15 years old, I was just lucky never to get caught and put in the system. I mean, seriously, it's unbelievable. Go ahead, Heather. Welcome back.
Thanks. I think one of the things we're going to talk about, because like I said in the last segment, we could go on and on about this, especially when you get us in the same room talking about things that we're super passionate about. But one of the things that is I want to express to people that when there are issues in your systems that you're unhappy with, speak up, get involved, reach out to your legislators, reach out to people, because we implemented a tribal assistant probation program because somebody in the community spoke up. Somebody said that representation matters. And if I'm on probation, I need some sort of cultural representation that understands my communities, the re-engagement with communities. And so Department of Corrections, other leaders, tribal leaders, were out in White Earth a couple weeks ago implementing this. And we're really, really excited about it. So Deputy Commissioner, do you want to talk a little bit more about our visit and what that program is intended to do?
Oh, absolutely. And I think this is another one of those intentional partnerships. Again, when we say it's one thing to talk about the work, it's another thing to try to be intentional. So I really just have to tip my hat, to the DOC, to the Lieutenant Governor coming out, but also to the field services staff, and also White Earth Tribal Nation along with all their representation, the Tribal Council, just for the great work. So the Tribal Assistance Program, this program stemmed from consultations through the DOC that have been engaged in a number of years. And this program will essentially allow respective tribal nations to hire their own probation agents who will work under Minnesota DOC supervision to supervise tribal members living within reservation boundaries who are under Minnesota DOC supervision. And what's important about this is this will ensure that tribal members receive both cultural specific and responsive probation services. And so just another significant collaborative effort that came to fruition. We were up there a couple of weeks ago for the official MOU signing. And again, I think I'm hopeful that it's viewed as just another effort for us to try to be intentional when we talk about those who are typically closest to the problem are also closest to the solution. And so anytime you can have partnership, specifically when, we talk about the disparities and the overrepresentation of both our Native American and indigenous Minnesotans, but also for Black and African American Minnesotans across the state. This is just a significant partnership and an opportunity to bring in our tribal nations into the work that we're doing and let them have ownership over it too as well. So it's not as much as, the state always looking to dictate how things go, but how do we walk hand in hand more often? And this is just an example of how we're trying to continue along that vein and kind of along that, that spectrum that I think has garnered some great results.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we continue to recognize the value of the government to government relationship piece with the state of Minnesota and our tribal nations. That's something that, is in our treaty agreements, is that we're good neighbors to each other, and being able to work collectively in this space, I think is just an example of how we can come together. So quickly, to kind of wrap us up, two of the things that I'm working on in connection with Department of Corrections moving forward is a notification system. We have been on some calls listening to other areas, really like the Navajo Nation does this really, really well, that there's this notification system that if tribal members are a part of the Department of Corrections or juvenile systems, we communicate with our tribal communities in a really intentional way, not unlike a tattletale way, but to try to work collectively to provide services if available for individuals, for families, and really like family networks. And so we're going to start working on that. But the other piece is MA, our medical assistant, when our kids, or really, I think it's all ages, and DC Shanklin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but when an individual goes into a
local jail or juvenile detention center.
Well, yeah, there's a certain area of it that then they lose their MA and it goes on hold for them. So like if they're in a setting and they don't come with their medications, or there's medical needs, that then they have to transition into another MA program. And when I looked at my county alone, my county spends almost $300,000 a year to provide medical supports for students and youth who maybe already had access to MA. So we're looking at different things like that because we know that kids who are on medication or kids who need any medical supports, if there's any type of gap in that in transition, it can increase harm, it can increase different concerns that we have. And so DC, do you want to just wrap us up real quick with a statement on either of those?
No, I just want to say I just appreciate your partnership and your leadership on that. I just would be remiss not to acknowledge just the great work that you've done to really illuminate these things. And I'll just say, just in closing, I think it's important, and I just sincerely appreciate you all inviting me and welcoming me to your space. Anytime we could continue to illuminate both these issues, but also the successes. Like I tell people, you can't talk about the criminal justice system without addressing the elephant in the room, which is the disparities and the inequities that exist. And we have to be intentional about doing so. And Representative Keeler has been a leader in this space, has been a voice for the voiceless. So I just continue to look forward to the partnership, but more importantly, look forward to continue to find ways we can build the community up, to have the community engaged in not just a seat at the table, but a voice at the table that is both heard and listened to. So thank you.
Yay. Wow. Did we stay in our time frame? How did we do?
Hey. That's fantastic.
That's right. Wow. Thank you so much for being on. And hey, right now, I don't know, I feel like we got all these people here. We should say this portion's brought to you by Howling for Wolves and Owl Howl. I don't know. What do you think?
Sure, let's do it.
Let's do it.
By Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations.
Hey, Curtis.
Yes.
Hey, get at me, man. I'm the guy that put together the solar training program at Willow River. So fighting mass incarceration with climate change, fighting climate change with mass incarceration.
Absolutely.
Yeah, get at me. I got some investors that want to put into putting solar on the prisons and having the inmates do it, and then also qualifying them for job opportunities after they get out. So I think this could be a really cool pilot program. And I had 7 states, Curtis, that talked to me. New York was the last one that talked to me about that training program. So I know it went to 7 other states after it left Minnesota.
Okay, well, hey, let's do it. And now I've agreed to make sure I'm going to reach out to you on the radio, so now you can hold me accountable to that. But I appreciate it.
Yeah, and Paul Schnell knows me because he knows my brother Bill. My brother Bill used to be a Minneapolis cop, so Paul Schnell knows my brother Bill. So
all right,
I know all them dudes. I grew up around all them law enforcement cats, dude. My whole
all right,
life, so.
I got your contact information. I will be in touch.
All right, cool.
Absolutely.
This is a great
Y'all
show.
stay blessed, stay healthy. Thanks again.
Peanut Gigi for being on. Wow, Heather, that was a great guest you had, and that's just amazing. And so now we're going to be you can hang out too, Heather, and listen to Bob Blake's solar news with the Solar Bear. Welcome, Bob Blake.
Hey everyone, how's it going? My first story of the solar news with the Solar Bear this week is China is going to exit coal. They're no longer going to produce coal or invest in coal plants around the world. So this is really huge, everyone, because understand that coal is like a big part of our greenhouse gases. And so one of the biggest things that we need to do is we need to get off of coal if we're going to meet our carbon goals for the future and basically save the planet. And if the utilities can no longer burn coal and they switch to renewables, then that means that we're just that much closer to saving the planet. So this is really good news. And they hold like a huge part of the coal market, by the way.
So I think the big news, though, too, is that you're on Good Morning America, and Ogimaa mentioned that in the beginning of the show. And I can't wait for my Solar Bear hat that's autographed now.
Oh boy, my phone has been ringing off the hook. The messages, yeah, that was crazy. And I really just tried to bring attention to missing murdered Indigenous women. And talk about, how important that is and just let them know that, we're not forgotten people. We're not invisible. We're still here. And just talk about the importance of renewable energy and the Build Back Better bill and how this is literally going to affect Native communities across the country, right? Just in general, right? Just in general, this bill is going to help everyone. And just encouraging our congressmen, our congresspeople, and our senators to vote yes on this because we need this money, and I just really believe that this is going to transform a lot of Native communities. So just really want to speak up about that and tell them that this is very important.
Well, Bob, we only have like a minute 30 left in this segment, and hopefully you guys can hold on for another segment. But do you know, now last time I talked to you, you said the Good Morning America piece will be there on the 11th or 12th. Is that still, or has it been played?
I haven't been able to call them. Someone told me it was played, and then someone else told me it was
with us now.
Yeah, and someone else told me it was a promo, so I don't know who to believe. But I literally do press every week, like literally, and it's crazy. So I can't even keep, honestly, Robert, I can't even keep up with all of it now. To be quite honest with you.
God, I just remember when you were just Solar Bear, the average guy, and now you're like with a bunch of picnic baskets. No, that's Yogi Bear.
I know. My claim to fame was Prince the Bodyguard. Now I'm like Solar Bear, the solar guy.
No, you weren't Prince the Bodyguard. You were a bodyguard for Prince.
Yeah, there you go. Yep, that guy. So.
Can you come back with us for another segment and finish
Absolutely. I got 3 stories, 3 solar stories.
Right on.
We got plenty of time for you.
Yeah, we're excited. Hey, you're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and we'll be back after this short break, Wendy.
Stay with us. Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
We are your relatives,
We are your relations,
brothers,
sisters,
sons.
daughters.
And some of us are your grandchildren.
We are your community. Historically, we held places of honor and respect. Because of the impact of colonization, some of us are rejected, thrown out from family, friends, and community, set up as targets for sexual violence, sex trafficked, humiliated, tortured, and murdered. Everybody has the right to be safe. We are your relatives. Remember,
Homophobia is not traditional.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Bijou, I am Oshawashko Gijig. I'm from Red Lake Nation, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
Hey, welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by J. Selby's, a plant-based eatery located at 169 Victoria Street in St. Paul.
Hey, Lewis, you got a question for Bob?
Yeah, so I read Bob just wrote, I know you got a couple stories, but in one of the news pieces that came out today on my Google News little feed about solar energy, so that solar energy is now the new cash crop for farmers when the price is right. In some regions, it's huge excitement for many landowners with the opportunity to have solar projects on their land because it does not give them, it gives them actually a guaranteed source of revenue. I think maybe that might be a way to think about renewable energy, is get a lot of these struggling farmers involved. What do you say, Bob?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, Lewis, that's interesting because one of my classmates is an executive at Lionel Lakes, and she approached me 2 weekends ago in class and was like, "Hey, Bob, we've been talking a lot about agriculture and solar, and and so Lewis, if you can imagine like how all those pesticides go into our drinking water, right? There's like a dead zone. There's like a dead zones. There's a dead zone like down at the bottom of the Mississippi. Well, that's all from like agriculture, and it's the poisons, right, that are in there and that go into the Mississippi. And so what I'm talking to the Lionel Lakes and these other big people about, Cargill and whatnot, is can we put solar to be able to offer that hedge, like buffer zone, right? Like a buffer zone. So that doesn't go into our drinking water, and the farmers can still make money by also, harvesting solar, harvesting their crops, but also being able to plant wildlife and vegetation so we can turn the soil too, right? So this is a win-win for everybody. And by the way, I just told everybody this big secret, but that's not a big deal because I want to save the planet, so I don't care. But the point being here is that this is the way that, this is going to work. So that's a great question, Lewis. And I just want to let you know that I'm on it. Yep.
Absolutely. And you got 2 other stories, you said, or a couple other stories?
Yes, I got first story is that renewables are on course to provide 33 to 50% of U.S. electricity by 2030. Guys, this is up from a couple percentage points. That just means that more and more renewable energy is being is being installed and coming online. So that's really exciting, everyone. And there's also a lot of new distribution lines that are being built to handle the renewable energy. And then the second story here is that GM, General Motors, wants to overtake Tesla as the electric vehicle market maker, as the electric vehicle for the EV market. That's huge, right? Because I thought it was going to be Tesla, Ford, and then probably GM, but GM thinks that they're going to leapfrog everybody. So listen, the more EV vehicles we have out there, competition is better for all of us and better for the planet.
You know, I was up there in Hinckley, Bob, getting some donuts at this place that I was told about recently. But it was funny because I was sitting there enjoying some donuts with my son, and I saw all these electric cars start coming. And sure enough, there's a Tesla charging station right there. And I saw all kinds of, and I seen other cars that are now electric, fully electric, that are not Tesla. And that's exactly it. I mean, this is going to be, I think, a new. When we talk about the industrial age, we're going to talk about the solar age. And I think that's where we're going, Bob. Don't you believe that?
Absolutely. I encourage everybody to go to YouTube and watch the Third Industrial Revolution with Jeremy Refkin. And if you just watch it, if you just take 2 hours, just learn something, I want to learn something tonight. Check out Third Industrial Revolution by Jeremy Refkin. It's an incredible watch. I tell everybody to check this out. And you will learn what the future is. And he's basically lays it out. He lays out the plan.
Wow, that's awesome.
That is great. And the Tesla cars, the electric ones, I thought they were pretty expensive, but now that GM is on board, I could imagine that they would be more affordable for more people to get.
A $30,000 electric crossover, Wendy.
Oh.
That's not bad. I remember when Priuses came out and everyone thought that Priuses were going to be, I'm like, oh my God. I mean, no harm to Priuses. Shout out to everyone that owns a Prius, but that car looks goofy to me. I don't know why. Maybe it's just not my style, but you look at it, and I think what Tesla does, it made it look really nice. Hey, this can kind of be cool. But what we see with independent manufacturers, I think there's one that has a truck out that's their own thing. It's just amazing. Other car companies may be coming up and just being fully electric that could challenge big wigs like GM, Bob.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got buddies that got money down on the new F-150. So I'm going to drive theirs first, but that's what I want to get.
You can pull our boat.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, hey, by the way, I've got some Solar Bear hats for you guys. I got 10 Solar Bear hats. I'm coming over, Robert. I'm going to drop them off tonight. And
I can wear them in DC.
Otherwise, they're going to go. They're going to go.
I know the last time you gave Ilham my gear.
That's right.
I have to go find Ilham and get my
Who else can wear a small sweatshirt but Wendy and Ilhan Omar?
I had Ogimaa too, but I don't know about anymore. I think she's growing.
Yeah. Definitely. Hey, we got a couple minutes left, Bob. You got another story for us?
Yeah. So also, well, this is kind of okay. So I want to just say this, Robert, but there's a story out there that the oil coming from we know this already, but the oil coming from Canada is the most carbon intensive in the new international index. So, we're talking about the oil that they want to flow through Minnesota, everyone. And we should know that, that this fight isn't over. Like, we talk a lot of good stuff here, but we need to keep the eye on the prize, and that we got to continue to fight and fight for the sacred. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. Hey, did you see what Laura M put up? This is like watching native Top Gear with all the EV talk. LOL, so cool.
I'm excited. Native's getting into electric vehicles, man. That's going to be so dope.
Hey, Bob. Kind of speaking of that a little bit, just a real quick question that came on top of my mind. But in Rosebud, where my tribe is, and Crow Creek, all these places, real rural. There's a lot of John Deere, as you know, the John Deere laborers are actually striking against them because of contract agreements and stuff like that. I'm wondering, has there been anyone in the space of agricultural machinery and come up with solar powered electrical machinery there, or?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we've got big manufacturer, big John Deere guys, that make the big machinery. They're going EV. They're going electric vehicles. Lewis, get on my Facebook page and I'll post one of those stories here soon. I just saw it too. So I'll post one of those stories for you. But we've got those big machinery companies that are going to go in this direction now too. Yep. It's just a business decision. It's just a business decision. That's all it is. It's not Democrat or Republican. It just makes good business sense. That's all it is.
I was just thinking about our tribal relatives getting involved in that, starting these businesses on reservations, getting those manufacturing facilities to do those parts right on the res, creating those jobs there. That's exciting to me.
I'm a part of one of those grants, by the way. Yep. Doing manufacturing on reservations. I am a part of one of those grants.
I thought I'd give you the opportunity to say that.
I am a part of one of those grants. Yep.
And not only that, you'll be on Good Morning America if you haven't already, and we'll be able to find it and we'll post it. I just want to say Peeny Gigi Bob. I want to say Peeny Gigi to Heather Keeler, Lewis, Ogimaa, and Wendy, Heather Keeler's guest, Curtis. It was so cool to have him on. What a lot of great information.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to end with these thoughts. If you're listening to the show, you are the resistance. We exist, we resist, we rise. From Chief Plentycoops, the ground on which we stand on is sacred ground. It is the blood of our ancestors. We need to resist, divest, join a group, and run for office. Again, Peeny Gigi for all our great guests. Wendy, Lewis, thanks for the great questions. Ogimaa, the great news. Wendy, for just being great. If you're listening to the show, you are the resistance. We're still here. We are the seventh generation.
Free Leonard Peltier. Stop line 3. Please get vaccinated.
Hi, I'm Claire Ferreira, president and owner of Standard Heating and Air